of Jesus' mother as the Virgin Mary has been completely created by the Church. Her original identity is now hidden. I noticed that everything's covered over in plastic. What's going on?
Yes, well, we're in the process of renovating the church. For years and years, we've wanted to make it look more like a house. And here, throughout the centuries, people are coming and they're burning candles and oil lamps. And because of this, the white stone has turned to the dark color. And now we're trying to clean it so that it looks more originally like the color of milk.
So when you clean this off, it will turn white again?
Just like you have right here where your hand is. You see how pure white the stone is inside?
Yeah.
It's absolutely pure white. And the further you go into it, the more white it becomes.
Wow.
And also, a few years ago, we had a woman from Vietnam, and she took a photo of Our Lady who was giving the milk. And it developed with 2 drops of milk coming from the photo.
Wow. So, in your tradition, the idea of Mary having any more children after Jesus is just a non-starter. Is it heretical for people to say that?
Well, I'm not here really to speak of anything that is heretical. My conscience is the Church. The Church teaches us what we're supposed to believe. This is why we have the dogmas of the Church, the teachings of the Church from the ancient fathers who fought all of these heretical problems in the Church.
So God said it, the Pope communicates it, and that seals it.
According to faith, according to what we believe as being the full truth.
Over the last 2,000 years, the Church has transformed Mary from a 14-year-old Jewish peasant into the figurehead of the greatest Christian cult. From a perpetual virgin, she became the Mother of God. Then in 1854, the Pope announced she had even been immaculately conceived.
She is Queen of the angels. She's Queen of the apostles, all prophets. She's the Queen of all saints. She's the Queen of confessors. She's the Queen of virgins. She's the Queen of martyrs. And in all of God's creation, she is the most important of creatures chosen by God to be the mother of his only son.
So she's number 1?
Next to God himself, yes.
In 1950, the Pope declared that when Mary died, her body was miraculously assumed into heaven. So her tomb is empty. Much of the evidence for this is taken from a 5th century non-biblical text that even some Catholic scholars now agree is valueless as history.
The apostles carried the couch and laid down her precious and holy body in Gethsemane in a new tomb. And for 3 days the voices of invisible angels were heard glorifying Christ our God. And when the 3rd day was ended, the voices were no longer heard. And from that time forth, all knew that her spotless and precious body had been transferred to paradise.
When the Transitus Mariae first appeared, the Church declared it heresy. The veneration of Mary is one of the most important cults in the Roman Catholic and Orthodox churches. There are shrines dedicated to her all over the world. But check this out. This doctrine was the theological brainchild of a succession of church fathers and theologians. There's almost no evidence for her veneration in the Bible. And of course, as Mary's status rose, the brothers and sisters of Jesus Christ, her real family, were almost completely written out of the story.
I think this is actually to the detriment of Jesus, and particularly Jesus' humanity, because of course a human person has siblings. He grew up in an ordinary Jewish household. He grew up probably in a very noisy, very lively household where there's lots of other brothers and sisters, where there's grandparents, perhaps an extended family. And yet I think that picture has been lost because we tend to have this rather idealized picture of Jesus and his mother. There's sort of rather solitary pictures.
There is an alternative theory about Jesus' family tree. It states quite simply that like any other first-century Jew, he had a family. A mother, a father, 4 brothers, James, Joseph, Simon and Judas, and at least 2 sisters, Mary and Salome. For over 1600 years, the Roman Catholic and Orthodox churches have seen this as heresy. In my quest for the secret family of Jesus, I have been invited to a Jewish wedding in Galilee in northern Israel. "2,000 years ago, there was another wedding in Galilee, a very special event that's recorded in the Bible, the famous Wedding of Cana. But what most people forget is that if it was a wedding, it must have been a family occasion. One of the most famous miracles in the Gospels is the story of the water turning into wine. It's where Jesus decides to introduce himself as a person who has miraculous powers and can do things that nobody else can do. Whether you're a child in Sunday school or you're a priest in a seminary, when you're told this story, the focus is always on the symbolism, the water turning into wine. But that's not the full picture. What we often forget is that Jesus did this at a family occasion. It was a wedding feast, and it was done here in Cana in Galilee. The Bible tells us that both Jesus and his mother were there, and that she appears to be the host. But it remains silent about the other guests. For 2,000 years, their real identities have remained hidden. Hello. Hello. I've just come from the church.
You are welcome.
And the priest told me that you speak English and that you might be able to help me.
English, but not very well. I'm speaking English. Yeah.
Okay.
I can tell you whatever I know from my father, from my grandfather, and because they were priests.
Okay.
And my grandfather, he built the church.
I'm interested in the story of the wedding feast at Cana. Who were the guests?
The citizens here from Cana, and they were Jews at that time. Yes, all of them. And Jesus came with his disciples, with his mother, you know, here, because he was invited. And we think, we are sure that he was a relationship between him and between the people here, or the
people getting married?
Yeah.
So Jesus was a relative of the people who were getting